Welcome back, YouTube. This is Daniel and Matt with the McMak podcast. We have a special guest for you today. We're actually talking about immigration. This is part two of a two-part series. We have Miss Natalia here. That's AKA Big Red, AKA Red Dawn, AKA Rush Billy, which she is going to have to elaborate on. Matt, what do you have to say today? Anything?
Guys, we're gonna have a little bit less scripted episode today. It should be pretty fun. We're gonna delve into some Russia issues, or maybe not Russia issues, Russia information, I guess.
That's right.
So no Russia I guess this is Russia collusion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hey, here we go.
Yeah. Anyway, get ready to rock and roll, guys. Here we go.
All right.
Hello, ladies and gents. Thank you for tuning in to another wonderful episode of the Tri-City's most riveting and informative show. Live from the hills of the Appalachians, the McMak podcast, where your conservative libertarian hosts, Daniel McCrae and Matt McRum, talk with you about some of today's most important issues and discuss how they affect you, the freedom-loving citizens of northeastern Tennessee. So, light your cigar, pour a glass of your favorite bourbon, kick up your feet, and get ready to dive right in. This is the McMak podcast.
You mentioned my name is Natalia Neese. I'm originally from Russia. Moved over here in this area about 2007. Visited this area shortly before then in 2005 and fell in love with this area.
Wait, back up. How did you just randomly choose here? Did it straight international flight from Moscow to Tri-Cities?
Plane ran out of gas or
Yes.
something?
Yeah. Ran out of gas.
Yeah, you may not have been aware of this, but there is a flight. Like, no, I'm kidding. Flew into New York. My first trip to the United States was as a work and travel student. If you guys ever go to places like Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and you meet a nice young server somewhere who sounds like they have a European accent, chances are they're there for that program. You know, just
There's actually, I used to work in the ER over in Sevierville, and there's tons of Russian people. It's just randomly they do like henna tattoos and stuff like that. Like they do it at the beach. They do it like go to Myrtle Beach, and there's lots of Russian people.
Yeah, so your tourist hubs like Gatlinburg, Myrtle Beach, Ocean City, Maryland, they're all going to have these students coming in for the summer, and those programs are called work and travel. So these are typically students in their early 20s that just come over for the program for the duration of the summer, and I believe that they're only supposed to stay during the summer and then leave, and the vast majority of them stays here because they just happen to love it.
Okay.
We're gonna get into why they would love it and what
Exactly.
the differences.
Yeah. So tell us why you chose America and not like another Western nation like the UK
First,
or something
how
like
did
that.
you get? I mean, what's the process of going through that student thing?
All right, so on my first trip here, like I mentioned, I was
How did
a
you get? How
student.
did like? Is there like a
Yeah.
lottery system
No,
or
no.
You
This is
should
something
to
that,
apply. You have to apply for it. Or
yes,
something over there? Okay.
you have to satisfy certain criteria. You have to be a student at a certain year at your school, your college. So you can't be first year student. You can't be the last year student. You have to be somewhere in between. And typically, you provide some financing for that program. So you have agencies that work with students like that. They usually come recruit students who are interested, who are able to afford this, because you do travel on your dime. You know, you sponsor your tickets, you sponsor a lot of stuff. And then as you are staying here in the United States on the program, you also earn your living. So nobody actually divvies up money to you and just gives it to you for free. But what typically happens, there's an agency that recruits these young folks for certain companies. In my case, it was Westgate Resorts. And they were looking for young folks that would do housekeeping, cleaning, cooking, whatever was required. Cheap labor force for them. They didn't have to pay any kind of, I don't know, your usual benefits like health insurance. You know, you don't have to worry about retirement benefits. So, and usually you pay a minimum wage, make sure that they have a nice place to stay, clean place to stay.
At a resort? Were you staying at the resort?
No,
No.
no.
Okay.
No.
Wishful thinking.
Yeah.
Well, we actually had a little bungalow area with a private pool, so no complaints there at all. Much better than what I would have seen in Russia as a student in a dormitory.
Wait, I know communism makes everything better. Or,
Yes, it does.
yeah.
Right.
And then, so you have your parent. You came here first, and then you brought your parents, correct, or no?
Well, that was my first trip, and that's how I met my ex-husband. So I have settled in this area through my ex-husband. We met in the summer of 2005. We got married shortly after. I went back to finish my degree because there was no way that my mom would let me not finish
And
it.
what was your degree in?
Translation.
Nice.
Oh.
So yeah, I got my first degree in Russia because I already had about 4 years in, so I only needed 1 more year to finish. And then after that, I have worked through the wife visa. And when all of that had been processed and approved, I came back to the United States. At which point, my ex-husband and I had a little baby on the way. So and she actually was born in Russia because I chose to not fly 8 months pregnant.
Yeah.
Right. Right. I understand that. Now, so is she a Russian citizen also?
She is. She is a
Okay.
dual citizen.
Does she speak Russian?
Very little. Very little.
That Russian citizenship's gonna come in handy. You know.
She might never use it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Well, they have a
Okay.
lower income tax, 15% right across the board. Steven Seagal is he denounced his American citizenship. That
Right.
traitor. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. No. So once again, back to that first question. So why choose America, not some other Western country like the UK or someone like that?
Right. I have always been fascinated by the United States. Always liked the music that came out of the United States. I grew up listening to a lot of rock bands of the 80s and 70s. Culturally, in terms of music and television, Russia had been a little bit behind. So, growing up in the 90s, I was introduced to the 70s and 80s rock.
Okay.
So,
Who's your favorite band?
um,
Van Halen.
well, no, that would be Guns N' Roses. I have several.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
So, yeah. Guns
Everyone
N'
likes Axl
Roses,
Rose.
Metallica.
Okay.
Isn't it funny how music translates across the
Yeah.
language barriers?
Oh,
Did
yeah.
you understand English then?
Not when I was little, no. I just tried to sing along, and it was a bunch of gibberish that was coming out.
Yeah.
So it was my first goal to learn English.
Okay.
Did you get into grunge at all?
I like some. I like some.
What is
Bands.
like Nirvana? Nirvana, is that grunge?
Yeah.
I mean
Yeah.
that just popped on the scene and kind of killed the
Yeah.
whole hairband situation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Them in Soundgarden.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pearl Jam.
Yeah.
Pearl Jam. Yep.
Can't understand anything he says anyway, so that's a perfect barrier language. Band.
Well, it sounded very similar to like some drunk singing.
Yeah. He still sounds drunk when I mean, you can't understand anything he's saying.
So, yeah.
Who?
From Pearl Jam.
Oh, Eddie Vedder.
And that's exactly that used to be my favorite stuff to sing along because all you needed to do was be drunk.
Yeah.
Make noise. Just make noise.
A better man.
What was that?
Excellent.
How many times?
Yeah. So,
Um,
so let's compare and contrast our cultures here, sister. So our first article is up. So if we want to take a little bit of look at that, Miss Shannon, if you want to read that for us, it'd be nice.
Oh, sure. Let's see. So.
And then
we have,
anytime you want to interject, Natalia, just go ahead.
Sure.
Cultural differences between Russia and the United States. So.
and this is just kind of like talking points. It's not
Yeah.
exact. I mean, we don't know. We haven't reviewed these articles. It's just these might be misconceptions or whatever. But we've got a Russian expert here, so
Yeah.
Well.
Well, let's see. We'll see where this goes. So, everyone who has traveled at least once in their life knows that from time to time you come across a situation when following common rules you face misunderstanding or put yourself in an awkward situation. As a rule, these are common everyday situations which you can face daily. The reason for this is cultural differences. Therefore, we decided to find out what differences there are between Russian and American cultures and to tell you about them. We tried not to base on our own assumptions, but to look at the situation objectively on the internet. We found opinions of Americans who visited Russia and Russians who visited America. So
I want to know, does every Russian girl have one of these bubble chairs?
I don't.
You don't?
No.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Okay.
But you got a friend that's
She
got one, right?
yeah, exactly. It looks pretty comfortable, honestly, and I feel
is
like
pretty cool.
she seems like she takes that with her everywhere. I don't.
well, I mean, I wonder if this is like a post-COVID world contraption,
Right.
Or, you know.
Possibly, some areas of Russia are plagued by mosquitoes and gnats.
Mm-hmm.
This could be
I
that.
I read that the bears at around Lake Baikal, they live on mosquitoes. Like they can literally open their mouth and just bite into the air because of the
Good
mosquito.
Lord, that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think people hang out in those places, but
People do.
do they?
Oh, yeah.
Because they're
Oh, yeah.
Russian and
Yeah.
they're drinking a lot of vodka. No, I'm just
Well,
kidding. Um,
I don't think the mosquitoes like vodka.
no.
I don't know where I heard that.
No.
you'd be surprised by Russian mosquitoes. They
Oh
don't
man, I
care.
bet they're just muscular.
They, They're like the special Chernobyl breed.
Yeah, okay, all right. I wouldn't want to mess with one. I'll say that.
Yeah.
No.
No.
So it says Russians are very cold and reserved when they're in public.
And I would like to comment on that.
What,
Yes.
It says what do a pineapple, coconut, watermelon all have in common? Americans often compare Russians to them. Soft and tasty on the inside, but bitter and hard on the outside. Sorry.
Yeah. So tell us about that. Go ahead, Natty. What was you gonna say?
So when I was in Russia working on my first degree as a translator, part of my curriculum involved assisting American students who came over to my hometown and they needed a guide, they needed a local guide. And so they were my first source of these differences, you know. How do people in Russia compare to people in America? How are both perceived by both sides? So I will tell you that the first thing they always noticed was the fact that Russian people don't smile the way Americans do. You know, there's a certain term coined, I believe, in this country, but used widely in Russia, and it's called the Hollywood smile, the perfect smile. People in Russia generally don't smile showing all of their teeth. Has nothing to do with dental care. That is just the way culturally it's been for many decades.
It's very stoic.
It's a more of a polite, like,
Uh,
you know, maybe even semi-skeptical. Americans always have big, wide smiles, and it's like the first difference that really strikes you when you visit Russia.
I watched or I read and watched this guy's accounts. He was visiting the United States in in the 50s, and he was talking about how stupid Americans looked with their big dumb grins all the time, like smiling at you, like just happy to be alive smiles. Where, you know, in Russia he was like, what, there's not that much, like, why are you smiling all the time? Are you happy all the time?
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like Russians smile when they're happy. I
Yes,
guess.
they well, usually they open up more within a more intimate, closer circle, so family, friends. However, to strangers, they really don't have any reason to be smiling like that. You know, like, oh, okay, whatever. You know, I just keep walking, looking all serious over here. So that's typically what the first thing that strikes you. Everybody just minds their business. I believe a lot of it stems from the fact that a lot of Russians have a pretty hard life. A lot of them still have some memories of the Soviet Union. Nobody wanted to attract attention. Nobody really wanted to be on the radar for looking too happy. So you just kind of wanted to blend in with the background.
Actually, sounds like the saddest city in the United States. I can't remember what it's called, but it's in West Virginia. And my friend who came from there, she described it just like you're saying now.
They're like, wait, you guys, are you
Yeah.
guys Russian? No.
That might be.
Yeah, but these people on the bus, they all look very much minding their own business. If this is a New York subway, you would imagine people are looking at each other.
I think it is Subway, what you're looking
Yeah.
at on this picture, yeah. And see, there are not very many cities in Russia that have subway systems. I would
Moscow.
assume this is Moscow. People in Moscow are generally not very friendly. Could probably compare their
It's like
lifestyle to
DC,
New
right?
York. No,
Right.
DC is
No.
actually more relaxed in my opinion.
Really.
New York has a little bit more of a rat
But
race.
Moscow's like the elites.
Moscow is where most people go to make a living, and it's not the easiest thing to do. So yeah, I guess they don't have many reasons to smile anyway.
Right.
I feel like we talked about Russia before. Like I feel like I talked to you about Russia like whenever I started working,
Yeah.
and you were very much more positive about, or
I still am.
maybe you were more negative about the current administration, or no? Maybe, I don't know. It felt like it was a little bit different, kind of.
All right, so here's another thing, another difference between Russians and Americans. Russians are very careful about openly voicing who they support politically.
Okay,
You
that
know,
makes sense.
there used to be an old joke about a Russian citizen sending a letter to the KGB saying, "If you caught my parrot, I want you to know I completely disagree with all the statements you made."
Right.
That's a good one. That's
Yeah.
what they should use in the United States
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, people in America are very open about sharing their political views. They're proud of them. People in Russia are usually more reserved. They always want to make sure there is a way out for their statements in case administration changes.
That's interesting.
And that comes from years of communism, and where you had to, in order to survive, you had to be a supporter of communism. You had to be part of the
Can you give us
party.
an example of like how you
Oh,
would have to
absolutely.
support how you would have to support as a normal person? Just
Well, so you would experience an early integration into the communist life. Um, I was fortunate enough not to go through it, but I know my parents did. So ever since their grade school, they had to wear the what I would call the paraphernalia of communism. They had little badges, they had little red kerchiefs to indicate they were pioneers. So that was your entry level into the Communist Party. You were called a pioneer.
Mm.
And
Okay.
so that indicated you're the communist youth.
looks like blood. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, but then as you got older, and let's say you went on to college. In college, they would assign you a different name, but you were still part of the communist youth, and that used to be called Komsomol, which translates into communist youth. And then as you were in college, you had to take a course which was mandatory in history of communism, one of the most boring courses in any college you would ever experience. And then, depending on how well you defended the political views of communism, that's how you advanced in your professional life.
It's
So,
party based, so
yes.
it's
Right.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
kind of like what China
Now-
in China. China. If you're not part of the party, they don't let you. You're never gonna get anywhere.
Well, I was getting ready to say. I mean, is it like one of those deals where you buy to know somebody to get in? You know?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Not necessarily. I think it just depended on how loud you were with your
Oh, okay.
proponent position of the communism. So you didn't have to know anybody per se, but there was a lot of nepotism too. There was.
Okay.
So anyway, Shannon, what else we got on here?
Let's see. Relations between a state and a citizen. So,
Okay.
You want to get that?
In one of the radio Savodi broadcast, which was devoted to this topic, American journalist and writer who specializes in the issues of Russia, the USSR relations, David Satter, characterized relations between a person and state in the USA and Russia. David worked in Russia for a very long time, and he mentioned that an average Russian citizen has much weaker moral guidelines if speaking about the interaction with the state or a government. In other words, within these relations, Russians are more willingly make concessions and compromise their principles. However, an average American is more suspicious towards his state and does not worship the authority just because it is the authority. So that's just what you were explaining. Pretty much.
Maybe used to. It's
Yeah.
more of a Fauci thing. We can go back to that, but anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
No,
So,
you're fine.
Yeah.
So yes, there's some truth to that. I think older generations would be more prone to do that, to be more trustworthy of the government. However, when I was growing up, there was already a differentiation between the country and the state. So for Russians, the country was the place you grew up in. It was your family.
The motherland. No.
No, not
I
exactly.
thought you guys used that
Yeah,
word.
it
Sorry.
did. Basically, it was your experience of living in Russia minus the political connotations. So it's who you knew, your family, who took care of you, the friends you had, your network, and then the state was what incorporated the government, the propaganda that came with it. So people who have lived through the collapse of the USSR and then the consequent democracy in Russia, they have all learned to be somewhat cautious of the government, not necessarily to be very trustworthy of its actions, always anticipating some sort of low blow.
So can I interject something there? Because that's interesting. For one thing, thank you for like clearing up what a pioneer is. Yeah, Daniel and I were listening to some YouTube videos before this, just kind of brushing up on some Russian history, and
They actually talk about that?
Yeah, they actually talk
They
about
did.
Look, it's very
pioneers. Yeah.
and I
pioneering.
said, what in the world is a pioneer, you know?
Yeah.
Not the pioneer, here, no.
But a lot of the people interviewed, when they asked them about, what was life like under communism, a lot of people, the majority, talked about it pretty glowingly. But then, and I said to Daniel, I wonder, do they have to? What is this? And then towards the end of the last video, when every single one of them, when they were asked, would you like to go back to that system, every single one of them said no.
Oh, no.
They're like, no, it's so amazing, but no.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great, but it's not for me.
It's very funny. It's kind of I'm sure people are aware, like the show Mad Men. Everything's very glamorized, romanticized.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing with the romantic period in like the 1800s. Everything, everyone's wearing, their corsets and everyone's so proper and stuff. But it's like there was like typhoid, there was polio, malaria. Everyone's dying left and right.
Syphilis, yeah, I was going to say everybody wearing wigs and stuff.
Yeah, and lice.
Head lice,
Yeah.
yeah.
You got the Black Plague. It's
Yeah.
like maybe it wasn't so good.
Right.
And the same thing with the 50s. It's the same situation. Especially with racism.
Yeah, so that kind of brings me back to the first question, why the United States of America? Why not Australia, for example? Well,
Because of spiders and snakes.
yes,
Yeah.
everything most poisonous lives in Australia, y'all.
Yeah. They're venomous, yeah.
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 But in terms of freedoms, it's very easy to observe for somebody who had lived in a post-Soviet Russia, like myself, my parents who have made several trips over here. They all notice the difference in how you move around the country. So, for instance, in Russia, and I've had this experience with my ex-husband, he decided to visit me in Russia in the middle of probably one of the coldest winters. Not the smartest
Sounds
move,
like a
but
great idea.
yeah, it was. And so the first thing he had to do straight off the plane, he had to go and find a little office, which, I was his guide. It wasn't as difficult for him to do. But find a little office where he had to get a little stamp, a little paper with a stamp that, I've arrived at this point and I'm given an X amount of hours to be allowed to stay at this point without any further actions required. So basically,
It's like a visa, right? Or
well, I mean, the visa
an
you would
arrival visa or
think
something.
would take care of explaining what your stated purpose of visit is, where you're going to be located. In Russia, it is not like that.
This is for you're saying so. This is like KGB monitoring you. So it's like
It
is
could
it checking in?
It could be still the remnant of the KGB monitoring, but the same system is applied to the citizens. So let's say you live in a certain area in Russia, and you have to travel somewhere outside of that area.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Interstate. So interstate.
Yes.
Really?
Oh, absolutely.
Didn't know that.
And Russians have to carry their passports on them at all times because you can be stopped on the street at any point by a police officer, and they can ask for you to produce your identification and also tell you what exactly you're doing there, how long you're staying there, who you're visiting, who you're staying with, what your
So is
business.
that currently
Sounds like you've been
still
through
happening
this.
today?
I would assume so. I've not been back since 2016, but that was still the case in 2016.
Okay.
And as a matter of fact, at that point, I was coming back to visit my family. The only time I've been back, mainly because I like freedom. And again, going back to why I'm
good
here in the
stuff.
United States. Yes, why I'm here in the United States, because I do not want to be stopped on the street every 5 minutes. And
Well, they can still stop you. You know, in the United States, technically, the officer legally, if they and also too, if they ask you to produce a state issued
Yeah.
ID, you're supposed to
While that is
produce
true,
it. Yeah.
while that is true,
They
in
can't. They're
the
gonna force you. They're not gonna beat you. You know, I've seen
no,
some
that's
videos
no,
of police officers in Moscow. They're like, "Hey, stop doing that!" and hit you with a
Right.
freaking baton.
Not
So-
even comparable.
Yeah.
So.
right. So I'll tell you a little story to kind of give you an idea of the extremes that it takes in Russia and how you don't really experience that on a daily basis here in the United States. In the 15 years that I've been here, I'm yet to be stopped and frisked anywhere, and I've been to New York and New Orleans and a bunch of DC, a bunch of other places. But back when my ex was visiting, we were on the train from St. Petersburg, Russia, which is the northern city in Russia, not to be confused with St. Petersburg, Florida.
They chopped down the whole forest to build this town in a swamp, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
and it's actually happens to be one of my favorite Russian leaders of all time.
Must
But
been a good
anyway,
guy.
yeah, well, a little sidetrack there. But
Yeah.
so we were on the train from St. Petersburg to Volgograd, and my husband had to have one of those stamps that specified, you know, here's the paper that says that he's in this location from such and such time frame. And as we're on the train, and this is an overnight train, a couple of police officers approached me, and I'm pretty sure they were tipped off that there were foreigners on the train. And so they approached me and they asked him and myself to produce documents. And he showed his passport and all the little papers that were in the passport. And they looked at the paper and they said, well, by the way, your authorization to be in this location expired at midnight. And we can officially put you out of the train. And we were like in the middle of nowhere. This was early February, 2006, and I mean, if you look out of the window, all you see is just snow and vastness, nothing else.
Oh.
And here
Put
they
you
are.
out of the plane.
Yeah,
Or
the
it's
train.
A train, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it was a plane, it'd be a little worse.
We could technically
nothing-
put you out
I
of
see
here.
nothing but clouds.
You have your
Yeah.
you have your parachute.
Yeah.
So right then and there, we engaged in a little case of a
Kira,
racketeering.
no.
And,
Yeah.
Sorry guys, my dog. Go
You're
ahead.
fine. And a little bribe negotiating. It was very awkward. I never had to pay.
Bribe negotiating.
Yes.
How much did that cost?
Well, you know, I didn't have much cash on me. Again, we were in the middle of nowhere. There were no ATMs to come and withdraw money in the middle of the night.
So you got shut down.
Well, yes, we did. And
What did they do?
well, they said, well, if you can give us this amount of money, and they slid a little piece of paper across the
Wow.
table. It was like so like old
And
mafia
you, like,
movie
you
style.
looked at it and you're
amount,
like,
yeah.
well, how about this, mama?
It was very awkward and shady. I mean, it didn't sound very offensive to me at the time. You know, I was just like, where's this going? And so I just gave them whatever cash I had on me to later see the police officers at the little bar that they had on the train. So they were drinking beer and stuff. They were like, "Yay,
On
to
duty?
America!"
On
Yeah.
duty?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yes. So, you know, of course, as soon as we got to my hometown, Volgograd, we had to go to one of those little offices and get him another piece of paper with a stamp that authorized the rest of his stay there.
You know, that's probably not the first time they've done that.
Oh
I
no, they
mean,
probably do it.
you
Yeah, it's
know-
probably the second time that day.
They do it every, yeah.
How they
Oh,
stay drunk.
I'm sure that, you know, they have a well-established line of bribes.
Do you think that they don't make a lot of money and like that's all the enjoyment in life they get?
I think that's part of it, and then they probably look at American citizens who come to visit thinking they're loaded with bunches of money. You know, why would $50 hurt them? You know,
What kind of exchange is it? Like if we'll say your rent here is $1,000 a month for like, I mean, a somewhat decent, you know, a nice apartment here in Johnson City. What can $1,000 US dollars get you in Russia?
depends on where you are.
Like your
in
hometown.
Moscow, you're gonna be living under the bridge with your $1,000.
Yeah. Well, it's like New York, yeah.
Yeah. In Volgograd, you would live comfortably.
Yeah.
You would have a downtown apartment, maybe not necessarily overlooking the best part of town, but it would be nice and clean and a decent neighborhood.
How much would it cost, like have a cleaning person or
You can
Yeah.
still squeeze that in. for
Really?
that,
Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty nice.
Yeah.
Might have to move to Volgograd.
Yeah, it's not a bad place to visit. Stay, I don't know.
Right.
You just gotta learn
Right.
that Cyrillic alphabet, right? Is that it's called Cyrillic,
No,
right?
all you need is
Is
a
it Gaelic? Is
No,
it
it's not
no,
Gaelic.
it's
what is it?
Cyrillic.
Cyrillic. Yeah, I was
Cyrillic,
close.
okay.
I was closer than you were.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you call it acrylic?
Yeah, I said acrylic. I was like, it's not acrylic.
Yeah. Right. So, getting back, to cultures and different stuff like that. Let's talk about the common myths about Russian immigrants.
Right.
Yeah. So go ahead, tell us some of that.
Well, if we go back to the article, Russians are rude and angry. That seems to be a common misconception. I think this is just the style of communication, the difference in communicating. Russians are usually more to the point. They don't beat around the bush, so they'll just say what they think, and they don't necessarily try to be the most diplomatic about it.
Mm.
So they do usually come across as rude. Um, I think that there's partially a language barrier there too, because Russian language is also very straightforward.
There's
Yeah.
also you can make it mixy or mixed up. You can use like any order of words, right, in a
That
sentence.
is true. Yeah.
Well, I dated a Ukrainian chick for a little while, so I was learning some Russian. And I was like, wait, so you can put the verb and the noun anywhere?
Yep.
They're like, well, yeah, but I mean, there's probably more common uses, so it's like just
Yeah. So in the
Common.
English language, you have word order that dictates the sense of what you're saying. In the Russian language, it's always in the endings of the words. So you can put them whichever way you want. The meaning will not change, because the endings of each word is what keeps it together and makes sense.
somewhat. You
Somewhat.
imagine guys who, developed a nuclear program use these sentences, which is, it's funny. I don't know that we've talked about this before, I think, as far as like China. The reason that China is, China has a very constrained language, and the language that you learn as a child is the language you think in, and that actually constrains the way that you think. So, even though you've spent quite a bit of time, in learning English and developing your Americanism, Russian is not as conducive as English has, a million words for the same thing.
Right.
And each one has different connotations
Right.
and denotations. So
Mm-hmm.
every different word has, you can make a million different combinations for one. It's the same thing, but it allows it such creativity and expression,
Right.
whereas other languages don't. Which is why that's one of what I think is one of the reasons we have such ingenuity, as well as of course our freedom of speech. But like, I don't know that Russia, if someone hadn't given them the nuclear secrets, that they would have just developed it on their own. Because first of all, Daniel and I have talked about this. You're coerced into thinking the same way. So if you
Right.
have new ideas that might not be mainstream,
Right.
they're not going to develop
Yeah.
them.
So what you're trying to say is that the English language predisposes you to being more creative. It's more flexible.
So far, right now.
Whereas the Russian language makes you more rigid in your thinking.
Yeah.
So prevents.
So would you agree
thinking.
with that?
No.
Okay.
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 It is because
Well, we won the
you-
space race, so I don't really. It doesn't matter what you think. Just kidding.
Yeah.
It's because you guys have not discovered the power of a Russian cuss language.
Oh.
And that is a
so-
totally different structure, and it can explain ideas much
Okay.
faster.
Okay.
Sorry, my dog is
Yeah.
being super annoying right now.
So changing gears here, let's talk about the process. What do you think about that? Good things, bad things? What would you change about it?
When it comes to immigration
Yeah.
process,
Mhm.
well, I will tell you this little story too. So when I was going through my immigration process to be established here as a green card holder, as a permanent resident, basically, green card is it equates to being a permanent residency.
Okay.
And when I went to my interview in Memphis, Tennessee, which took months and months and months to happen. You know, lots of paperwork, a lot of money, and finally, when it happened, it was just like a 10-minute process of itself. And basically, I believe what the officer was doing at that point was verifying, you know, this is the person in front of me who had filed, you know, this paperwork, who I've seen in pictures. This is their sponsor / husband in that case. And you know that what they're saying is legit. And basically, I guess it's more or less is like a lie detector test without the actual equipment. They just look at you, make sure you know what you have provided in paperwork form is legit. And so we were talking, and he asked me to shake my hand at the end of the interview. And he said, and unfortunately, I did not remember his name. I wish I did. He was very nice. And he shook my hand and he said, I have been an immigration officer for 26 years, and you're the first person who did not stay after the work and travel program, that one that we talked about. Said, you're the first person who went back to Russia and did what you were supposed to do and filed the paperwork, you know, to come to the America the proper way. And so it really astonished me that I was the only person in his 26-year career. And he shook my hand for that. He
He's
said,
like, why did you come back?
That's incredible.
I know. I did not. That kind of opened my eyes to the immigration process. And, you know, I've got friends who overstayed their visas. And, you know, at first I had this opinion of like, well, maybe it was more convenient for them to do it that way. And I didn't realize that there are so many obstacles until I started to go through this process with my own family. So, you know, my brother is currently in Russia, and I try to get him to come over for a visit just to see, you know, just to come over and visit me here. Because he's never really spoken like he ever wanted to immigrate here. But he wouldn't be against a you know, short visit. And when I started the process for him, I realized that it is very, very subjective as to who is perceived as a good immigrant or a good immigrant material, who is perceived as a not so good immigrant material. And so in his case, he is male and he's single. And he comes to the embassy, and there's no indication that he would ever want to immigrate or even start the process. This is just for him to get a guest visa to come visit me, and they just flat out deny it. And the statement that they provided was that he did not satisfy the requirements of proof that he would not at any point want to immigrate. And that was it.
So he didn't get a visa to visit because of that?
Yes.
So they're
Wow.
trying to get rid of people?
Well, now this is my subjective view. It seems that females may be a little bit of a better, I don't want to call it commodity, but females seem to be more interesting in the eyes of immigration than single males.
Wonder why.
Yeah, what do you think that is?
Not exactly sure. This is just a speculation here. I want to say maybe there had been some negative history with single males coming for a visit. Probably some suspicion if it's a single male coming over without any specific reason other than a guest visit. You know, going back to like Boston Marathon bomber and whatnot.
Okay.
They may be looking at them as more prone to
Like radicalism.
radicalism, terrorist activities, and yeah.
Okay. So, has being here changed your outlook on life for the better or worse? You know.
It had. It
Okay.
had. To be honest, you know, I've done a lot of thinking on that. You know, people frequently ask me, like, why do you stay in this area? Why are you in Northeast Tennessee? Why are you, like, not in New York, Los Angeles, and I don't know, even Chicago?
Okay.
And, you know, I've traveled a little bit on the East Coast. I haven't really gone far on the West Coast. But I love the people in this area. And I know there's a lot of stereotypical thinking about this area. You know, this is the hillbilly area, the redneck land.
Okay. So that explains the rush belly, right?
Yes, yes. But to be honest with you, I love the people in this area. I love the fact that they get to do what they want to do. They get to live their life the way they want to live their life. They
Okay.
don't care if they conform to anybody's elitist views.
Okay.
I like that. And I have met people of all walks of life, to be honest. And living in this area has restored my faith in humanity. I have seen a lot worse, a lot of betrayal in Russia, where people were just trying to survive, trying to make ends meet. And I've seen a lot of gracefulness, a lot of goodwill in this area.
Awesome. Awesome. That's good. So, would you think now, being that Russia has changed into a more capitalistic system, do you think there's still more opportunities here for you than back in Russia? And if so,
I believe so. Yes, yes, I believe so. And this is also from a female standpoint.
okay.
Um, and this also goes back to some of the cultural differences
Okay.
between the United States and Russia. Ironically, right after the World War II, females had a lot more opportunities in Russia. A lot of male population had been um, devastated by the war. A
Yeah.
lot of males were killed.
Mm-hmm.
So raising the economy back to the level that it needed to be was resting on the shoulders of many women. And, women had to take up professions that were generally considered to be male. So, like for instance, my own grandmother, she was a bricklayer. She was a mason for like 30 some years.
Hmm.
And she is the size of Sophia from the Golden Girls. So if you want to imagine,
Yeah.
um, then there were females who worked on the railroad, females who worked in factories doing all sorts of manual labor, and they generally had all the opportunities and the respect. And then towards the end of the Soviet era, moving into the new pseudo democratic state, and that's what I consider it to be.
Mm-hmm.
Um, all of a sudden, you had all this distrust of females. Females are no longer appropriate to be occupying male positions.
Hmm.
Females were considered housewife material only.
Hmm.
They couldn't really drive, and this is still a myth, or a common concept in Russia, that females are like monkeys with grenades when they're driving. You don't know which way they're going to turn. So, it was not a common thing to teach a girl how to, let's say, change a tire,
Right.
or drive. And in general, females were considered to be just housewife material,
Hmm.
and it was not something that I agreed with.
Right. Right. Well, I can understand that. So, here's another question, just a little bit deeper. Do you
Mhm.
do you think, as an immigrant, from the perspective, that
Mhm.
things have gotten better or worse here over the years in this country, politically and socially? What do you think?
I think there's definitely a lot more tension. There's definitely a lot more tension. I remember that when I first came to this country, there was just genuine interest in meeting people from other countries, getting to know different people without there being ever a fear of where you came from, what your beliefs were. And I think that over the years, there have been a lot more tension. So there's definitely a lot more what I would call xenophobia.
Okay.
And it's not necessarily towards Russian people.
Mm-hmm.
It's just to folks coming over here from other countries. There's a lot more cautiousness. Um, and yes, politically and socially, it had become a much more loaded atmosphere, so to speak.
Okay.
So you have to be a lot more careful of what you say, where you say, how you say it, because you never know if you're going to end up coming across as insensitive, racist, homophobic, and you may not even mean to come across that way. You just may not have any specific experience.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, me coming from Russia, I am not the most versed person when it comes to using the right pronouns in right situations, because homosexuality, any kind of transgender issues, they have always been a taboo. So,
okay.
when you come from that environment and come into the United States, and you might be just curious about these situations, but you can't really engage in these conversations without somebody automatically thinking, well, you're racist, you're homophobic, you're this and that. You can't have an open discussion, it seems.
Especially, yeah, I mean, do you think it's because of the difference in cultures and stuff like that, or you just think that the tension is just the air? It seems that way, from an American perspective too.
Yeah.
So I mean, I wish things would get better, but that's why we're here. Maybe.
Sorry, I had a little hiatus. What were you guys talking about?
Oh, we were actually talking about from an immigrant perspective. If you think things have gotten better or worse here over the years,
As far
politically and
as
socially.
As far as comparing to Russia, or
Well,
just
no,
in general,
just overall.
Well, I mean,
Since you got here,
someone who's 30, I don't think that people even thought really about race. Like, they thought it was like an archaic thing.
Yeah.
Even just whenever I was in high school.
right?
Now it's like
Right.
the main focus of everything. The thing that people don't pay attention to too is in the United States, we're not homogenous.
Right, You're the melting pot.
Yeah, so other countries don't. One of my favorite movies, probably the best. I think 95% of Americans would agree that Remember the Titans is the best movie ever made.
Yeah.
So I might have seen that movie more than any other movie I've seen, but what Denzel Washington would tell us is that the other team doesn't have to worry about these issues. We do, but we're better for it. But they've turned the tables on us, and they've made it a weakness instead of a strength. We should be able to look at it and say, all these people look different, but the reason that we're better is because we don't see that.
Right.
But countries like pretty much anywhere else in the world, except for maybe South Africa, they're mostly homogenous. That's 90-something percent.
Yes.
The same thing with Russia.
Absolutely.
I don't know. Is there a little bit of racism in Russia?
Oh, yeah.
Like, as far as like Mongolians, I know.
Not really. Not with them. I mean, and I would say that.
Or is it against Jews?
No.
No. Because Stalin mostly wiped them out.
Well, I don't know as far as I think he just wiped out whoever disagreed with his line of thinking.
Right.
The thing about Russians, we have a lot of jokes. We have a lot of jokes about different nationalities, and that kind of brings me to the second joke I was going to share.
Okay. All right, take it away.
She came prepared with information.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Just so
saying.
you guys know, she filled out. This is all her hand. Well,
No,
That-
mine
on
is
the
the
next
second
page,
page.
yeah.
Next page is like, she's just like,
Yeah.
actually, let me think.
Yeah. Let me come in here and let's take over. Yeah. But go ahead, tell us a joke,
Yeah,
Maddie.
so I recently read a joke. It was about COVID vaccine, a hot topic.
Right.
And I thought it was culturally very interesting. So, it was from the perspective of a doctor offering the COVID vaccine to different nationalities. And so he offers it to a British person. And, the British person politely refuses. And the doctor says, well, but sir, you are a gentleman, aren't you? And he's like, yeah, okay, jab me. And then the doctor offers it to a German person, and the German person's like, no, I don't trust it, I don't want it. And then the doctor says, but you are a citizen of your country, so you will do as what's best for your country, so okay, jab me. And then the American, is offered the same vaccine, and the doctor says, you ought to get this vaccine. The American says, no, I don't feel like I need to. And then the doctor says, but look at your neighbor. They're getting their vaccines. So, and then it comes to Russian, and a Russian guy's like, no, I don't want it. Don't. And doctor says, well, I dare you. I dare you. I bet you can't. I bet you can't do this vaccine. And then the Russian person says, yeah, give me 2, doc. So
Right.
I thought
great.
it was
Yeah, that's a
pretty
great
good joke,
example.
and very culturally appropriate, I thought too.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
think Americans pay attention. I mean, they don't realize that that's, we're always, man, it's so terrible because and I think I might have brought this up on previous broadcasts. In the 40s, 86 or 87% of the United States was Christian,
Mm-hmm.
and now it's less than 50,
Right.
and that's a testament to what we idolize. I don't know who I was talking to someone recently, and I was like, oh, I think I was talking to Danielle, Danielle for Tennessee Stands,
Yeah.
and I was saying, if if some alien culture was watching us in the United States, especially right now, they'd be like, man, these people, like whatever their religion is right here. Because think about
Yeah.
how many hours
Yeah.
people pray or read the Bible or anything like that. And then think about how many hours your phone will tell you how many hours you spend, on your phone now. And that's our religion. This is our religion, and then
Yep.
it's the state, and then it's Christianity or whatever faith we have, and that just goes to the joke you're talking about is we only care about how things look.
And from the Russian perspective, Russia has an official religion. It's Orthodox Christianity.
Which is
So,
surprising considering, during the Soviet Union, it was
yeah.
like Christianity was
Yeah.
like taboo
Yes.
ish
Yes,
Yeah.
it was. It was.
because it's against the state. I mean, you can't
Right.
command
Yes.
people.
It goes back to the Karl Marx statement, and I think it was him or his buddy Engels, one of the two, who said that the religion is the opium for the people.
Right. Opium
And
for the
if you,
masses.
Communism
Yeah.
is
yes, for the
amphetamine.
masses,
Yeah.
yes. And so if you remove the religion, the people, the masses will need somebody to replace that void.
Yeah.
And so that's how Stalin became a demigod in the eyes of many Russians, and that's how the cult of personality had been
Right.
introduced. And so, yes, if you because people, it seems, always tend to have that urge to look for the greater good, to look for the bigger entity than them, to look for the God. And then, so in the Soviet era, there's been a great void in terms of religion. And then in there, I think they gradually started to reintroduce Christian faith back because they noticed that people were still sticking with it. And many people in Russia have sacrificed their lives for the faith, which nobody really talks about.
Well, yeah, there's so much death in Russia's history. It's ridiculous. Like, if you look at the Bolsheviks,
Yeah.
back then there was serfdom, and
Yep.
whenever they were going to war with like Napoleon, those were all that was
Yeah,
like
oh, yeah.
lost like half of their population in the Napoleonic War.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you go to fast forward, less than
Those
100
Russian
years.
winters, though, boy.
Yeah.
You can't fight in Russia
No.
during the winter,
No.
man.
No.
Yeah,
you
your
can't.
gasoline turns to jelly between your tanks.
Yeah.
But but then also too, then you go to World War II, and you lose 50
Yeah.
million people. Just I'm sure people have seen behind enemy lines where they're sending one rifle for every two people
Yeah.
because they assume one of you will get shot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they
Right.
give you each
Yeah.
a handful of
Yeah.
bullets.
Well, they had death squads, where they were literally squads of Russian soldiers that were aiming at their own fellow citizens to make sure that none of them tried to flee, none of them tried to retreat.
Yeah.
And so they would shoot them right there. So the choice was you either get shot by a German soldier or your own.
And that goes back to in the United States, it's a government of the people for the people, and we are sovereign. We allow the government to govern us. We allow the
Yeah.
government to govern
Right,
us
right.
because
They
we
actually
consent.
work for us. Yes.
They work for us.
Yes.
They're not the dictators. If there's something that is against against our sovereign beliefs, our freedom of life and liberty, and then
Pursuit of
personal
happiness, yes.
pursuit of happiness, personal property,
Right.
then we just don't do it. That's how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And if you look at history of the United States, that's what we did.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with being belligerent and just I'm American and
Yeah.
I like my guns.
Well, see, that is something that I have noticed with my children. So, I have two children in the Bristol school system.
Luckily, it's Bristol from Tennessee instead of Bristol, Virginia.
Yeah.
No, it's Bristol, Tennessee.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Which, Bristol, Virginia screams taxation without representation to me. So I used to live there for
Yeah.
just a short bit, and then I got tired of paying weird taxes that didn't really achieve anything. So I was like, nah, I'm going to the Tennessee side.
Oh, so you started in Virginia.
I lived in Kingsport, Tennessee, and then Bristol, Virginia for just a short bit, and then back
That was
to
a bad
Tennessee.
decision. You're like, I immediately regret this.
Yeah.
There were personal reasons for doing that, not political. But yeah, I didn't stay there very long because I was like, nah, I don't think I need to pay Virginia.
Well, it's funny because it's Northam. We're talking about people being racist and things. You
Yeah.
got this guy over here wearing blackface while he's in medical school. I promise I'm not racist. And then you got Joe Biden going and doing a eulogy at a freaking KKK Grand Wizard's
Yeah.
funeral. What was it, 2016?
Talking about the death of Robert Byrd.
Yeah.
Could have been,
Yeah. I think it was 2016,
that kind of thing.
2015.
Like Trudeau was in blackface. That kind of thing happens over and
Yeah.
over and over.
Yeah, it's just like, but they're like, no, it's okay. I'm not like that anymore. I'm super good now.
Yeah.
Like,
You
bro,
know,
no.
When I look at Joe Biden, I compare him to Brezhnev. He was the Soviet leader who would always get confused. He was the one who was giving the biggest smooches on the mouth to the man. He would be like, mwah. And
It's not a Russian thing.
No. That was just that one particular dude
It's
thing.
one Russian's thing.
But I remember there was a joke about him, about Brezhnev standing in front of a crowd during Olympic Games, and he was holding this paper and he was reading, oh, 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 oh. And then somebody whispered into his ear, "You're reading the rings on the Olympic Games symbol." Like, the text is below. You don't need to read that.
Oh yeah,
So-
and, I constantly wonder. I was like, has anyone is there earpiece in Biden's ear? Like, I feel like that. We gotta make sure this guy doesn't just start rambling on about
Yeah.
something random like he normally does.
Yeah, and see, this is what I really loved about the Russian culture is that you could make fun of stuff like that. You could make fun of any leader, any nationality, any cultural aspect of your life. You could make fun of. It seems in America these days you can't.
Yeah,
It
you
used to be, though.
Used to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so.
If you do,
Yeah.
you're automatically get canceled for what you say. You can be taken out of context and be put in a situation where you have to even go before somebody and defend yourself. Otherwise, you're going to be boycotted out of your practice, your business.
That's like Dave Chappelle was the best proponent. He's hilarious, and he would make fun of transgender people.
I love Dave
He's like,
Chappelle.
he's like, how many letters can you get?
Yeah.
And then he's making fun of black people,
Mhm.
Asian people, and the best comedians, at least to me, are the ones who are whatever ethnicity or whatever. They're making fun of their own culture, right? Like
Yeah.
Asians are making fun of Asians.
Everybody's just so sensitive now, man. Everybody, takes everything literally and they take it to heart. You
Yep.
you really just can't joke around, anymore. And I hate that too. I
Yeah.
hate that too.
And
There's a,
humor seems to be the one unifying force when it comes to conflict, when it comes to disagreement. Humor has always been the one unifying force for that. Doesn't seem to be the case anymore. I promised to tell you this little story about how I ended up being labeled a racist in
Right.
Hampton, Tennessee. So we were on the way to a little sawmill in Butler, Tennessee. And this is in relation to the outrageous cost of wood. We decided to venture out there to see if the sawmill had slightly cheaper prices, but if you buy it in
it's
a
like
big
a designer. It's like designer wood.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah,
This guy he's like, you want this wood? It's gonna
Yeah.
cost you.
that's right.
Put it on the black
So-
market.
right. So we're out.
He write the price on a piece of paper and slide it to you.
Yes. No.
She's like,
As a matter of
I know how to
fact-
do this. Don't worry.
We had a great experience there at the sawmill. Unfortunately, they were selling out real fast, and we weren't able to get our needs met there. But great folks, very friendly.
Because
But
they're friendly, because they got a lot of money. They're making a ton of money.
Yeah.
no, I think it's just here's the thing: it's a genuine thing of a lot of people in this area. They're really friendly. You know, they don't care if you're from
I
Russia.
don't know about that. Whenever I went to Michigan last year, I felt like everyone was super nice.
Oh,
I was like,
okay.
man, you guys are way nicer than people down south. I think maybe because
Really?
I think it's whenever people can recognize that you're not from here, they
Mhm.
automatically are nice. I think that might be it. The
That might
hospitality,
be.
people say it's southern hospitality, so
Yeah.
automatically assume people are just nicer. I think that actually what it is whenever they realize you're not from here, they're like, oh, well,
Hmm.
welcome. I think people are probably more welcoming. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I don't know. I mean, honestly, I've not had that experience.
Well, that's because you're foreign and people can recognize it right off the bat.
Well, see, but I'm a Rush Billy now,
Yeah.
A
so
Rush Billy.
a Russian hillbilly.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
what you're talking about. Okay.
Give a
All
few
right.
more years, they'll be rude to you too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have this accent that has some Russian, and then it has the little Southern twang.
Yeah,
So
some things you
Is
do
that what
say,
you're
I'm like,
saying?
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, she's been assimilated.
yeah.
Well,
Anyway.
see, people in my patients in the hospital don't understand me if I don't like throw a little
Don't
sweetie in
you?
it.
And you do the I.
Yeah.
Whenever you're like, even if you pronunciate every single other thing clearly, and you have a southern accent, whenever you say I,
Uh-huh.
they're like They're like, yeah, I.
Aye. Aye, aye, aye.
So you're
I.
good. So you're in Butler.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
you're in
picking up the
Butler.
wood.
Yeah.
So before we got to Butler, we had to take a quick stop in Hampton, Tennessee, and it's just small little area. We love going there for just various things. And there was a little coffee shop there on the corner, right next to Roadrunner gas station. So I come into that coffee shop. I think it's a Dunkin' Donuts coffee shop. Shout out to Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah.
Who is
Screw
sponsoring
Krispy
this week?
Kreme.
Who is incidentally sponsoring this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just so everyone knows, we're brought to you by, was it Dunkin' Donuts? Sorry, I
Yeah.
forgot. There's some
And
donuts.
And Roadrunner.
Yeah, we ate all the donuts already. We threw the box away. Forgot who it was. Yeah, check them out. Go to Krispy Kreme or no, sorry, DunkinDonuts.com/McMak podcast for a 0% discount.
I think the place is called Crispy Donuts.
Crispy donuts. That would be hilarious.
I was thinking,
That's awesome,
we
Crispy
need a
Donuts.
little CBD donut shop too.
Yeah, there you
Yeah,
go.
exactly. Well, they can do the Delta 9 THC.
Build
so
it,
we-
they will come.
Yeah, exactly. Well, if we go over to Virginia, we can open that up for sure.
Yeah,
we can get
If
absolutely.
the nursing thing doesn't work out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so
Anyway,
So, at Hampton, Tennessee, little coffee shop there, getting my coffee. I already paid for it, so I'm just standing at the end of the counter waiting for it. And I think it's me and a veteran, I assume, was standing behind me. We're just both waiting for our coffees. And this little couple of women comes in, and, one of the women is African American, and the other is white, and the African American lady is on the phone and she's really, really loud. It sounds like she's having an agitated conversation. She's screaming at the person in the phone. And so, we're standing at this end of the coffee shop. I'm wearing my mask. The gentleman behind me is wearing his mask. We're like minding our business. And she eventually makes her way to us and just yelling in her phone like, oh my
On speakerphone.
no, not on speaker, but she could have been on speaker the way she was yelling, and she instantly starts accusing us of eavesdropping on her conversation, despite of the fact she
She
brought
said,
the
"Are you listening to my conversation?"
Oh no, it was like these fools over here are listening, which she didn't
This one
have
right in my face. this one right.
just accusing us of eavesdropping on her conversation, which we kind of ended up being hostages of. We didn't ask to be participants in that. And, all I did was just shake my head. Like, didn't say a word to her, just shake my head. And instantly, I was a racist. And she was.
Russians.
Yes, I know. These
Right.
rude, angry Russians.
Got this drunk Russian over here. He's drinking a vodka. You can smell it on her breath.
How dare you?
Yes, and so she's like screaming at the girl behind the counter, who was giving me the coffee. She was like, "You need to see what these people over here are doing. Like they should be locked up for this." And I'm just like,
And this is in
What'd I
Hampton,
do?
right? It's
Yes,
like
and
she's
I'm
like the only
like-
black person in Hampton.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I'm like, they got this stuff got to Hampton. Oh my God.
Well, what it is it's just the majority of black people are not. They just want to go about their business. They're living their life, doing their thing. But
Believe me, I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
My ex-father-in-law is African American.
Mm.
He lives in D.C. We have great relationship. Um, never had any issues up until
No one
this
did.
Hampton experience, and it was just I could have sworn I thought maybe it was scripted, because as this little scenario was unraveling, the white lady that came together with the African American lady, she started getting her iPhone out or whatever phone
She's
she had.
videotaping it, huh?
Mm.
Yes, and I'm like, I'm out of here. I'm not giving
Yeah.
I'm not giving them any material, just even from me stupidly shaking my head like no. Like I'm not
Whoa, dude, what are
participating.
you supposed to do?
Yeah.
You should have done like this. Like,
Hell
yes.
yeah, I'm
Yes.
listening.
She's like, yeah. No.
Let me talk to them. I will plead your case.
Yes, you should have pointed it and give
Yeah.
her a thumbs
I'm an
up.
ally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Um,
All right. So, so let's start on a list that
You know, I don't mind. I don't mind to do like an extended version of this because I mean, this is pretty interesting
Yeah.
fun stuff. I mean, what do you think,
We're a
Shannon? You
little
still?
over an hour. What do you
Yeah,
guys? How are you
yeah.
guys feeling?
I mean, we'll keep
I'm
going.
good. Are you good?
Oh, okay.
What do you think, Shannon? You good?
Yeah, I'm good.
We'll
for
go.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to go past 10.
All right. Yeah, that's cool.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
my husband will start worrying.
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
What's
for real.
happening?
but
So-
What are
but
you-
this is
what are
super
they
interesting.
filming over
We
there?
might not be able to get you back, you know, because it's kind of hard to line up everything,
Right.
especially
Right.
since you're on day shift and you
Yeah.
work a different schedule than us.
Mhm.
Anyway, yeah.
So,
Anyway,
yeah. So start checking off this list, sister.
we
went-
got taboos.
yeah,
What are
you
some
went off.
taboos that
So,
you wanted to talk
taboos
about?
of the former USSR.
Yeah, so the common taboos that I became familiar with were there was no sex life in USSR, yet people somehow kept being born. And of course whatever revolved around anything, any illegal or immoral activity. So
What kind of marriages or marriage percentages like people stay together there?
people stay together. I think on let's talk about it in terms of generations. I think people of my generation and those who are younger typically end up divorcing more often. I think that my generation and younger ones are more in tune with the internet and the usual things you see on internet and TV. Older generations like baby boomers, Gen X in Russia typically stay throughout the entire marriage.
Okay. Yeah. So you actually wrote something else down here.
Mhm.
Propaganda and censorship.
Hang on one second.
All right.
I wanted to, first of all, Shannon's headset is louder than everyone else's. But these are some comparative statistics here. I thought it was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
They pulled these up from, what is this? Don't know exactly what date this is. But it's just comparison to like alcohol consumed.
Mhm.
So food and drink. Russia, they drank 43% more than the United States.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
I mean, per capita.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Says fast food. They use more fast food in Russia. They don't cook as much, maybe.
I don't
No?
know. It depends on where you're looking. Again, Moscow, yes. If you go further out, probably not so much.
Sentiments towards other countries. It's talking about China. Says Russia is 24. Only 24% viewed China as negative, whereas 67% of the United States viewed China as negative.
And this goes to one of the topics that I wanted to cover is the propaganda.
Okay.
So each country sponsors a specific image. So if you have certain business partners, and in Russian case that would be China. China is their big business partner in many things. Of course, the view of China is going to be more positive. Anything negative to do with China is going to be heavily censored. The news channels in Russia are still heavily politicized. They're mostly centralized to where what is delivered to Russians on your usual news channels are going to be is going to be processed, is going to be censored to fit a certain image. So for that reason, Russian folks are going to be more positive towards China and more negative towards the U.S.
Hmm.
And also, too, what I was just pulling up there is the you guys smoke 3 times more cigarettes than Americans per capita.
There are quite a few smokers in Russia. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so that just that's actually something that I'd see in like my uncle is Egyptian. He still smokes like a freight train.
Really?
Yeah, it's a cultural thing, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it has to do with the stress too.
I think that, in the United States, you see certain trends that are popular. For instance, psychotherapy. You know,
Tell me your feelings.
Yeah.
yes, any celebrity out there is going to be like, well, so my therapist told me, I would guarantee that anybody in academia is going to be like, well, I have a therapist, I'm on these antidepressants, or blah, blah, blah. In Russia, that is not the case. So your ways to alleviate the stress are usually alcohol and tobacco.
So, let's talk about social media here. Social media and cancel culture.
Yeah.
What can you? Is social media cancel culture wokeness? I think we can all roll that into one. As far as Russia,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you think?
how does that work?
Oh, it's starting to become more prominent in Russia. It didn't used to be back when I was growing up. Now it seems to be a big thing. Like TikTok is a big thing in Russia now. It's
You know, they're getting sued by pretty much every country. You know, because they've been collecting data on children.
no, I'm sure they're collecting data on everybody.
Yeah, everyone probably.
And see, to me, TikTok is nothing but just shorter videos of propaganda and advertisement.
Yeah, because you don't have time. You don't have time to. It's so sudden. Whenever someone like gives you like a 5-second clip or 10-second clip,
Yeah.
you don't have time to analyze. Be like, oh, okay, well these things don't coincide with each other. Maybe this is fake. Blah 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 blah.
Right.
And you know, with the TikTok videos, they're so much shorter.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, so the cancel culture and stuff. I mean, are you talking to your friends back home or back in Russia?
Or can
And
you?
what do they say about it?
Well, the friends that I maintain in Russia, they typically don't pay attention to it much.
Okay.
But now younger generations, like the kids of the same age that my kids are, the teenagers, this is where it becomes really close to home because,
How does the government censor things? I'm interested. Like, what are they? Is it kind of like China where they just you can't access certain websites, or
Yep.
how does it work? I mean, I'm sure it's similar to like you have a web provider, and in the United States you can use a VPN. I'm pretty sure you can do the same thing. There is, I guess, if maybe the issue there is like if you can even get to the website to download the VPN.
Yeah.
Once you have it on your computer, then you route to somewhere else. But what if they see that you're using a VPN? Would they like come to your house and knock on your door, and be like, "Hey, you're using an internet masking"?
No, they just won't. They just won't open that website on the Russian territory. Period.
But so on a VPN, you reroute. It makes it look like you're
Right.
using it somewhere else.
See, the majority of Russians don't have that technology or don't know of that technology. So
They just don't know about it.
Right.
Wow.
That's like China.
Yeah.
We were talking about China
Yeah.
previously. This person I met from China, she said that 80% of Chinese people just don't know that they don't trust the government, but at the same time they don't know because the government controls everything.
Right.
I think Russia's a lot more secretive about the fact that they control everything. They're like, no, we don't do that.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay. Well, in China is like, there's no other dissenting views, so they don't have to worry about even combating the information.
Yeah. So, yeah, when it comes to wokeness or cancel culture, usually younger generations are more susceptible to it through TikTok. And then you may see somebody of my generation falling under the same category via like Instagram or Facebook.
So social media, pretty much.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
pretty much the same. Kind of
Social
spreads
media
it
is like a
around.
grooming process for children,
It
essentially.
is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
And that's why I stay away from it. I'm not on Facebook. I'm not on Instagram because I want to have my own independent opinion.
If you look at Jordan Peterson, what I'm sure plenty of people don't like him, but he's a super smart guy. He's a genius in my opinion. But
Yeah, very.
he'll tell you, by the age of 4, you cannot change someone's view of the world. There's things that you can change as far as like your understanding, but as far as the way that you formed your thought process, it's pretty much set in stone. And like if you're not able to assimilate into culture by the time you're 4, like if you're one of those kids who keeps having problems, with authority, blah blah blah, you're typically,
you're
sentenced
more
to that
prone. You're more
for the rest of
prone
your
to
life.
have problems in society
There's,
throughout your life.
because you just haven't been able to you haven't been able to understand the norms. People are like, well, everything's subjective. Well, the thing is that it's not, because it's a mechanism of survival. There's
because these children are usually raised in really violent homes where people don't get their way. They just lash out.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And
The KGB would disagree with you.
they would just make you disappear. Be like, this kid doesn't work. We're gonna have to make him disappear, right? I mean, I'm sure. I don't know if you knew anyone who disappeared like that. Is that
Not personally.
You've heard of it though, huh?
I've read some. Yes, I've read some things.
Not
and
close
heard
to
some
home.
things, but yeah, thankfully nobody that I personally know.
There's a movie called Child 13, I think is the name of it. It's got Tom Hardy in it, where he works for the KGB or
I'll have to watch
what?
it.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny. It's always funny watching people who are not whatever nationality playing nationalities.
Yeah.
What's that one with Jennifer
Garner.
Hunger Games?
Yeah.
Oh, Lawrence.
Jennifer Lawrence. What is that? The Red Sparrow or something like that?
Yeah, I watched that one.
It got terrible reviews.
Yeah.
It was like, this is a terrible movie. But I understand. Have you seen the Americans, the TV show?
Maybe 2 episodes.
Oh man, one of my favorite shows of all time. A fantastic show. But that's what they would call them. That was the the whatever the key word was for them. The Americans. They were, first generation Russians that were brought here and assimilated into American culture that no one knew who they were, and then they were super covert spies that were infiltrating the FBI, the CIA, and that was real.
I'm sure.
There's real stuff going on. And then whenever the KGB or whenever the Soviet Union fell, they were like,
what do we do?
I guess we just assumed the identities that we assumed.
Yeah. I assume I'm me.
Yeah, see, that's another thing that really cracks me up as a Russian national when I watch American movies. And it seems like, there's always the same Russian villain,
Well, it's obvious. There's only Russian villains.
Yeah.
It's only... sorry, I didn't mean to hijack you.
You're fine.
Well, the thing that drives me absolutely crazy is you have Russia, who is like 20 years behind us technologically as far as military advance. Like, they still have a very powerful military, don't get me wrong. But what I'm saying is, as far as cutting edge and volume, our one U.S. Navy strike force, carrier force, has the same strike capability as a modern nation, right? They have nuclear submarines with nuclear warheads that no one knows where they're at. They have, I know it's like 50 ships, right? They have a mobile aircraft carrier. I mean, a mobile airfield, and then you got Russia. I think Russia has 2 aircraft carriers, something like that.
I'm not sure.
Even regardless, I think we have like 20, something like that, nuclear aircraft carriers.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
And they will say Russia is the number 1 threat. What about China? China produces every product in the United States.
Right.
That's not a threat. It's so hilarious because they like to play the Russia collusion game, and there's absolutely no reason why. I mean, there's Russian hackers, blah blah blah. But as far as an economic threat, Russia has oil, and but they're such a vast nation. It's very hard for them to mobilize anything as far as actual ground forces. They have nukes, of course, but I think it's hilarious that the liberal left loves to play Russia. Russia. No, F that. It's China, right?
I will tell you that, Russia is a familiar villain, works every time, and it doesn't matter how...
Look at this.
Right. It doesn't matter how unplausible it may sound, it works every time. So...
Why is that?
It's a good question. I probably should be asking you.
I think it's the accent. personally.
Yeah,
That's
maybe.
it.
And the
The lack of
coldness, yeah.
smile.
Very
Yes.
intimidating. Yeah.
Lack of
yeah.
smiling, that seriousness in the face.
And if you just got to know the guy, the villain in the movie,
Right.
if you just got to know him, he'd be
So-
real
But-
sweet on the
Vlad,
inside.
he's very nice if you talk to him. He's
That's right. But then, it always cracks me up that these villains are portrayed like they play the accordion, they do a little tap dancing.
Yeah,
They
that's
don't
right.
play the accordion,
They
or
drink vodka.
Yeah,
They definitely drink vodka.
They sing these really threatening, menacing lullabies, like in John Wick, for instance. The first
Yeah.
one.
the babushka.
Yes, the Baba Yaga.
Yeah,
it's
babushka is a baby.
Yeah.
No, babushka is a grandmother.
Grandma.
Yeah, same thing.
Yes.
Same thing.
She-
Yeah,
That's the one thing I know because of the Kate Bush
Yeah,
song.
Jana Poina might say Peruski.
Yeah.
that's that's
So-
pretty good. Pretty good.
Let's talk about human trafficking. You wrote that in. Is that
Yeah.
regarding immigration?
Is
So,
it
yeah,
something
going-
that you guys it's not something you guys like in Russia?
No.
Oh, okay.
Human trafficking is a big problem in Russia.
Are they aware?
And yes, it is a female issue. A lot of young females and young children in Russia end up being victims of human trafficking. And so, I guess one of the things I wanted to highlight during this discussion was that immigrants are a lot of times in a very vulnerable position.
Because they
I can
don't.
see
Because they're
that.
scared of first of all being deported.
Well, not just that. I mean, there's so many points of vulnerability for immigrants and women in particular, because you can be, let's say, a mail order bride, and if you have children with your spouse and your spouse is abusive, you are a hostage of that situation until you establish some kind of independence. And a lot of times immigrants are in a position where that independence is not likely to happen for many, many years. And it makes it very easy to exploit.
So real quick, so people
Mm-hmm.
don't understand. I think what is it? Is it There's a 2-year waiting period after you're married to get your green card.
So no.
Is it 1 year?
Usually it ends up in longer than that.
Oh, okay.
So I think the process is different for if you're a citizen versus if you are a permanent resident. So U.S. citizens typically enjoy a slightly quicker process for that paperwork. So per se,
Are you saying if you marry a U.S. citizen versus if you marry a permanent resident?
yes.
Okay.
Yes. So per se, let's say a U.S. citizen like I am now, applying for a close family member to immigrate and live with you. As a U.S. citizen, that process would generally be just shorter than if you were a permanent resident doing the same thing.
Okay. Do you think that's because of the verification process and everything, or?
Not exactly sure why that is,
Okay.
to be honest. So, going back to one of the questions you asked earlier, like, are there any things that I would like to see change in
Right.
the immigration process? I think that for those immigrants who have established themselves to be law-abiding, those are the immigrants like myself who have gone through the process, even though it was not the most convenient process,
Right.
but you have gone through it. You have established that you are law-abiding just by that. You've complied with all of the requirements, provided all of your documentation, money, whatever, and you have waited the process. For
Should be
you
easier,
to sponsor a family member to immigrate the same way should be there should be some kind of leeway. There should be a little bit
An
leniency.
easier.
Yes.
Because I mean, you're now an American
Right.
citizen. Yeah.
Right, because you have already established your law-abiding, because they also look at your criminal background in the process. So they look at the fact that you have not committed any crimes here or in the country that you're coming from.
So I'm sure you guys haven't seen it, but I did a quick video yesterday talking about one of the Supreme Court decisions, and it was talking about they're not a citizen, they came from El Salvador,
Yeah,
and they've been here for 20 years on
Right.
a temporary protection status,
Mm-hmm.
meaning that they're not going to be deported.
Right,
So the thing is they entered the country illegally.
right.
So U.S. statute mandate that to be a candidate for citizenship or permanent residency, you cannot have entered the country illegally, which makes total sense.
Right.
Then,
Right.
like for for my dad, whenever he came to came from Egypt, you know, granted he married an American citizen, and you know he got his green card, but um, whenever you're entering the country, you're establishing your foundation there, and you know what I said in the video is that Trump actually made this a foundation of his immigration policy. Is if you are needing protection status, if you're running from Russia, for example, for persecution, you stop at the first country you come to and you wait in that country while you
Or waiting for
waiting
your asylum status.
waiting for the temporary protection. It's not even the asylum,
Okay.
just temporary protection. So once you get that, which is it's a very short time period that it takes for the temporary protection status as opposed to asylum.
Okay.
Then you can enter the country once you get that. But these people are coming here first and then establishing it, and that's like, well, I mean, you broke into the house and now you're,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
you know. So I mean, I feel bad for people,
Right.
but you're a criminal. At first, then not you, but people who you might be a criminal. I mean, you're Russian. We've already established that they're bad people, the bad guys. But I mean, my dad, he, you know, coming from Egypt's a third world country, basically a second world country, and you can't just cross the border.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And you don't really even you don't speak the same language as everyone else. Same thing with Russians. You know, it's like, well, this guy might not be legal. He doesn't speak English. You know, he speaks Russian.
Yeah.
You know.
So, you know, again, I think the reason for these situations is because it is much more convenient to just get into the country and then throw the dice and see what happens.
Especially when you have a baby. Like, I think a lot of the people are having a kid here. That's their
anchor babies, as they used to call them.
Anchor babies. I've never heard that. That's
Really?
a good one. Yeah.
I think it's a Fox News term from like 2010 or something like that.
Right.
Yeah, and that seems to be a case for a lot of Russians who retain their Russian citizenship and they're Russian celebrities, but they will come to have the baby delivered here in the United States.
Especially celebrities, they can afford it. They just
Yes, exactly. And so, you know, there is another big difference that I would like to point out between Russia and the U.S. So, and it's the Constitution. It is how you become a citizen. So in Russia, you have to satisfy two requirements to be a citizen. So you have to have either one of your parents as a Russian citizen and be born on the territory, or you have to have both of your parents be citizens.
What about Steven Seagal?
Now, he is a special case.
Because of the ponytail.
Now, well,
or no, because he's famous.
Yeah.
Well,
rich.
I'm not exactly sure.
Steven Seagal.
Yeah,
Right.
because he
Come
knows
on, guys.
he knows martial arts, and Putin is a big fan of martial arts. So.
Yeah. He was a sheriff.
Judo chop.
That's right.
Right. So-
And in America, you only have to be born to an American citizen. So both parents don't have to be citizens, or you have to be born on the U.S. land, U.S. soil. And so it's just one requirement you have to satisfy to be a citizen. So a lot of people come over and have their babies, and ta-da.
So you were talking about the specifics as far as sex trafficking. What exactly is the atmosphere in Russia as far as, because I mean it takes two to tango. So what exactly? What are the conditions that set up that scenario in Russia? Like, what is the accepted? Because there clearly is an accepted culture in Russia that allows this to go on. It's not, it's the same thing with the drug culture in Colombia. If you go to Colombia, everyone's just freely producing cocaine paste, right? And they're producing it. There's people that control it, but I mean, if you go to any of the smaller rural areas, they're producing cocaine on a large scale. It's not like a secret.
Right.
Same thing, I'm assuming, is the case, and it's not just the United States that's the major buyer. It's like Middle Eastern countries that have a lot of money.
That's one of the things I was going to ask, because we know it's a problem, from the Mexican side to the American side. I was going to ask you, where are they taking these people?
And how did these people get involved in?
Yeah.
So are you like asking as far
Start
as
take us
the,
from start to finish. Say you're a young girl.
yeah.
Say you're a young girl. Say you're 12 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Um, how does it end? How does it start from that 12-year-old girl? Like, what are the dynamics, the family dynamics, and
Right.
like the middlemen, and like where do they end up?
Okay.
Because we
So.
don't, as Americans, we don't know that. We hear sex trafficking. We're talking about people setting up
Mm-hmm.
instances for people to prostitute out young
Right.
people,
No.
which is not. It's not technically them being imported from
Mm-hmm.
overseas, but that is the case in Russia.
There are a lot of similarities, though.
Okay.
If you really sit and think about it, there are a lot of similarities. So, first off, you have to have a person who is vulnerable to that, and you would get that vulnerability from A, poverty, and B, substance abuse.
Which
Okay.
well, that's pretty prevalent in Russia. Is based
Yes,
on what you were saying. You know,
yes.
they have a high standard of living.
No, no. The
Okay.
majority of folks, especially those who live outside of Moscow or St. Petersburg, outside of large cities where you have better employment opportunities, will be living beyond the poverty line, which I'm sure I'm now getting into the crosshairs of the Russian government, who states the opposite.
Hmm.
Do you have any idea of like how much U.S. dollars a month
Um, you
for a
can,
family?
yeah, for family. Well, let's talk in salaries that we all
Yeah.
understand, like
Dollars
the
per year?
nurse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the nursing salary.
Yeah.
So let's say, while here a nurse on like in the Tennessee area, the nurse on average would be earning somewhere around $60,000. Let's just throw
Yeah.
that.
Right.
Let's throw that.
We'll say that for an experienced nurse.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then in Russia, same level of experience nurse would be in a rural Russia or a smaller city Russia. The same nurse would be earning $60 a month.
Wow. So that's $7,000 a year. $7,000 or
You said-
$700. No, wait.
No, wait a minute. You said $60 a month?
600. Sorry,
600. I was
Oh,
like, okay,
$600
about $7,000
Yeah,
a year.
600.
Yeah.
And that's that, and then they also get, of course, whatever government benefits. Because is
Oh,
it?
they're
No.
none.
Okay, so
No.
it's not socialized anymore.
So no, it's
All the benefits all the terrible bad things about being socialized without the good benefits.
So yeah, let me walk you through the remnants of the socialist anything in Russia.
Fall of 91,
Right.
Soviet Union falls, and then like we were talking about before the
Mhm.
show, all of the USSR, those countries didn't just automatically dissolve into independent states. It took a long time for that to dissolve, and
Yeah.
the same form of government persisted. It was about strong men,
Yeah.
and people who had guns.
Right. So what you saw happen was the major privatization of state-owned things.
Yeah.
And so one thing that is also a hot topic here in the United States is the healthcare. What is the socialized healthcare? Is it really that great?
Mhm.
There's some that claim, oh, the Canadian model works awesome, the British model works awesome. I'll let the Canadians and the British speak for that. I don't have any first-hand experience.
Australians.
Yeah. Now I will tell you the Russian socialized model. So you had, for a number of years, this behemoth of a system where the state, provided money to keep up the infrastructure, to provide salaries, and, the medical professions were upheld and honored and respected and all that good stuff. And the salaries were actually very, very much comfortable. They were providing good living. And then after
previous to
right,
91.
in the Soviet Union.
Mhm.
And then when you started to see things being privatized, but yet the healthcare kind of remained in the same area of being state-run.
Okay.
All the infrastructures, your buildings, your equipment, all of that went old as heck. So, there were very few repairs and replacements of things. So you had personnel who was overworked and underpaid chronically. Schools that were supposed to provide new doctors and nurses, they didn't have an opportunity to keep up with the changes either. So, and then again, there's a lot of bribing in those schools, and
Okay.
you could have doctors who practically bought their degrees. And
Well, you can still do that now. It's
yeah.
Oh, well, that's how big the United States is becoming. But sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So, your socialized medicine pretty much reflected what was happening in the country. So right now, I will tell you, you can have a health policy, you could have a health care plan, a health insurance plan in Russia. However, the reality of things is you have to bribe everybody. You have to pay an amount of money to the anesthesiologist if you wanted not to wake up in the middle of your surgery. You had to bribe the surgeon to provide some assurance for yourself that you are going to have the right thing removed, and so forth and so on.
Because there's no standardized. Um, I'm assuming.
And there's no malpractice lawsuits in
Yeah, it's
Russia
like who are you
either.
gonna sue? Who are you going to sue?
You won't
This
be
is
able.
Russia.
Let me cut you.
Yeah, it's funny. I watched this documentary. I think it was 2 years ago, and the scientists in the video were using beakers, right? They were like, see, if you do this test and this, and then you put this reagent in this, then it turns of this color. I was like, you guys are using glass beakers. Like, I feel like a scientific lab would be using, the machines doing like,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
stuff like that.
absolutely.
And then in Russia, I was
yeah.
like, this isn't an old documentary.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And so it varies though. You could go to the top #1 medical facility in
Not
Moscow.
anymore. Not anymore.
Well, if you could afford it.
Even if you could afford it, they have
You- really?
introduced a law that says Moscow is for Muscovites.
Oh, really?
So you're really, you're
So,
out of luck.
but still, if you live in Moscow and you're a Moscowite, then you get the best medical care in Russia.
Yes.
So, but everyone else is screwed.
Yep.
Yeah, that's kind of how the Congress is, right? So they get the best medical benefits, and then everyone else gets screwed, and then you get I don't know if you guys have taken a look at it, but the what is Obamacare, whatever the
Affordable Care Act.
Affordable Care Act.
Yeah.
If you look on there, man, to get the kind of insurance that we have at the VA.
Don't get me started.
Oh man, it's crazy ridiculous, and I don't use it very much, but tons of people do. But the the problem is I'm not trying to talk trash about my job. I love my job, love-ish my job, and I'm thankful for my job. But federal jobs, for every dollar we spend, we get 50% of the results, right? Because there's no incentive, right? We just blow money, and we're not utilizing it correctly because we have no cost benefit analysis kind of situation.
Well, you're dissecting a different beast. The VHA system.
Well, it's the federal system. It's the
Right,
federal
in the
system.
federal
The
system,
federal
but-
people who work for people who are the elites, which is the
Yeah.
federal people.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we're part of that.
Yeah.
We get the best of everything, and we give up nothing.
Yeah. And so when it comes to immigration, that's another thing that I would like to see happen is that the immigrants who go through the legal process are allowed to participate in the health care that U.S. citizens participate in, because, and I will tell you why. So this is the experience I've had with my parents. I've initiated their green card proceeding, and so in the process, while they're sitting here waiting on this, while the COVID resolves and the government starts to work in full tilt because everything has been delayed by the COVID, they cannot have the same health insurance that most Americans take advantage of, like the whatever insurance meets the criteria of ACA, the Affordable Care Act insurance. So they are excluded from that process because they're not yet green card holders. And so even though, let's say, they could purchase it, they are financially savvy to be able to do that, they are excluded from it by the fact that they're not yet green card holders. And
Right.
so what they're left with is the temporary plans that don't even cover pre-existing conditions. And so most of the time, we have to use the self-pay system. So
Okay.
they have to go and pay out of pocket. And what ends up happening, the doctors don't get the benefit of charging the insurance the full price.
Okay.
So the doctors, the providers do not benefit from that really. The immigrants who have to wait on the green card or citizenship or whatever, but in this case the green card, they really are a big liability, because if something bad happens, they have to go to the hospital with an emergent need, then what happens? Who's going to cover the entirety of that cost? I'm sure the hospital would have to negotiate some kind of payment, but a lot of times this type of system leaves the medical providers and hospitals out of the normal reimbursement they would be getting. And that's another thing that I would like to see happen, that while people go through this process, of again demonstrating their law abiding,
Right.
they're following the letter of the law, they're providing documentation, they're paying money for that process, that they should be given a little bit of a advantage by being able to at least participate in the healthcare exchange and be able to take advantage of it while they're waiting.
Okay. That's a good idea.
I wanted to bring up real quick here, just a couple, again, since we have you here, we'll utilize you. So this is according to, the Soviet concept of human rights and legal system.
Yeah, according to Wikipedia.
Yeah. So
So
we've got you here. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
so it says the Soviet conception of human rights was very different from conceptions prevalent in the West. According to Soviet legal theory, it is the government who is the beneficiary of human rights, which are to be asserted against the individual, whereas Western law claimed the opposite. The Soviet state was considered as the source of human rights. Therefore, the Soviet legal system regarded law as an arm of politics and courts as agencies of the government. Extensive extrajudiciary powers were given to the Soviet secret police agencies. The Soviet government, in practice, significantly curbed the rule of law, civil liberties, protection of law, and guarantees of property, which were considered as examples of the bourgeois morality by the Soviet law theorists such as Andrei Vyshinsky. According to Vladimir Lenin, the purpose of the socialist courts was not to eliminate terror, but to substantiate it and legitimize it in principle. Sorry, Shannon, took your seat. Give your seat right back. We're just kind of going over the legal aspects of human rights for the Soviet Union.
So it's actually in the Soviet area was kind of the opposite of how it is presented here. You would say from that right there. Do you think that's correct?
Well, unfortunately, I'm not a legal
Okay.
scholar,
Okay.
so I can only again.
Come on now.
Come on now.
You know what's going on, girl.
So I will tell you again from the personal experience.
Right.
So luckily for me, I've only grabbed the very end of the Soviet era.
Right.
But it still had long-lasting effects. That's what I'm saying. It's
Yes, it
like
did.
it didn't change very much.
In some ways it did. I think it morphed into a slightly worse beast than it was initially.
That's good.
But I will tell you just from my average life, average Russian. My great aunt, she was a staunch communist and an atheist as well. So early on in life, I learned that if you want to keep your family, you don't discuss politics and faith.
Oh, right.
So that was the first thing.
Unless you're raised the same. See, that's the problem with the United States is there's the different generations have been raised differently.
Yes. And, I remember that I had a wonderful history teacher, and he would usually tell us during our class, now students, you got to put your pencils or your pens down. And what it meant, it was a euphemism for don't record any of what I'm going to say because this is going to go against what you're supposed to be taught.
That's awesome.
And he was the one who actually started me.
Is this guy dead now?
I don't know. I don't know.
feel like they disappeared.
He was in his early 70s then, so.
Oh, he probably just died of
okay.
natural causes.
I hope so. But he
Not
was,
now.
which I'm not telling any names.
Right,
so,
right.
He
They-
was the one who really instilled some liberal views in me, I guess, as a school
Liberal as far as you're talking about libertarian.
libertarian, and
Libertarian.
even
So
liberal.
well,
Because,
liberal as far as United States terms is liberal
right.
is progressivism, and which is not the same.
Well,
The classical sense of liberalism is less government, more individual responsibility.
right. But I think that it was a mixture in that
Yeah.
case, because anything that was not communist,
Right.
it was already considered liberal, libertarian, whatever you name it,
Which is
democratic.
that's true.
Right.
Yeah, no, you're right. Okay, so but that's against what we're saying.
So-
So liberal in terms of the United States is liberal is more government.
Yeah.
Liberal is in terms of communism.
Progressivism.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yes,
synonymous with
anything that was
progressivism.
anti-communist,
Yeah.
it was basically.
That's
what
funny.
he was
It's
talking.
so backwards here anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. So our last subject that I want
Uh-huh.
to talk about is you wrote down benefits of locals or local communities, benefits from immigrants to a local community. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So, and again, I derive a lot of what I talk about from my experience or experience of my friends. So I hear a lot of criticism in my current role, professional role, and also just random people might ask me, you're Russian, you got here, you're stealing my job, or yeah, guilty
lot
as
of people.
charged.
Yeah.
Guilty as charged. I get to hear that a lot. You
Took my job.
yeah, you know,
Took your job.
you immigrants come over here. Why can't you just stay where you are? Make that place great again. I wish I,
Mara, make Russia great again.
yeah, I wish I personally could,
Yeah.
but I can't. I mean, if I could, I would.
Right.
But the thing is, like examining where I was a few years ago, and before I got into nursing career, and I had to rely on my ex-husband, and obviously things didn't work out between us. But in terms of economic benefit, I just knew that I could not be somebody who depended on a U.S. citizen. I knew I wanted to have a job of my own, income of my own, and in terms of where we are today, I'm not trying to call my ex a loser, but I guess I am.
I think we'd all call our exes losers,
But in terms of where we are today,
except for
you
you,
know.
Shannon. I said everyone's losers. Everyone's ex is a loser. I'm not gonna say John's a loser. So
but in terms
Great
of where
guy.
we are
He was
today,
earlier.
Right.
she said he was earlier.
I have a steady income, provide for my family. There's no need for me to go rob a bank or
Right.
kill somebody to be a provider, and
That's good.
I own a place, so
Right.
there's no need for me to commit any crimes to provide
Right.
for my family. And my ex is still renting a place and still earning under the table, whatever. And I think he's on welfare.
Again, it comes back to the American principle. The most important thing that people effing miss is that it's not the American principles is not everyone gets the best things.
Right.
It's that it doesn't matter where you come from, you get what you put into it.
Right.
And regardless, if every single one of us at this table said, I'm going to devote 10 hours a day to studying, we could be, leader of, Harvard Medical School or whatever, equivalent to that, the
Right.
same kind of level of
Yeah.
whatever,
Right.
but we balance that out with life and our own
Right.
desires and our own,
Right.
laziness
Right.
and
But
all these
that's-
things. But other countries, you can't do that.
Right.
Like if you
Right.
talk
That's why this is the best country on the planet.
exactly,
is.
and
You know what
I'm
I'm saying?
gonna get
Yeah.
my uncle on here, and he just started a restaurant business in Morristown.
Dude, we gotta
and-
go down there and eat too, bro.
Yeah, we gotta go to we should go down there and eat. Maybe we could film it there.
That'd be awesome.
And the thing is, he's from Egypt,
Right.
right? He just came back, and he was like, I've got this one last shot because they've always opened businesses. To open a business here,
Yeah.
make money, go back.
Yeah.
And he just opened a new restaurant. It's in Morristown. If anyone's watching this, it's called Moe's Falafel House. And I don't really like falafel, But this stuff is off the chain, and it's totally.
Waffles are awesome. What's
Yeah.
wrong with you?
Well,
Yeah.
Usually it's like a hush puppy, right? It's really
And
dry and,
donuts.
and crunchy. Yeah, but this is like he makes it to order. I wrapped several hundred grape leaf, right? The rice grape leaf things.
Yeah.
This is different. This is totally different. The ones that you've eaten here are not even on the same plane of
All right,
existence.
you're making me
when are we
hungry.
going?
Yeah,
Take
yeah.
a
So
date
yeah, we'll
now.
go there and
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
there and get. Maybe we'll bring it back and
Yeah.
bring it back
Yeah.
for everyone.
Welcome to
Well,
Moe's.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Shout out to
Who
Moe's.
incidentally is sponsoring this.
Yeah, most this is sponsoring this.
Crispy donuts.
But
Falafel donuts.
I'm telling you, thank you so much for coming
Yeah,
on.
no.
And I know we would definitely like to have you back on
Yeah.
because you're definitely very vocal
Yeah.
as you are at work also
Yeah.
about
Is
your
that a compliment?
opinions.
It
That's
is.
a
It is a
compliment.
compliment. No.
Because
But-
a lot of people that we would have have their opinions there and not
Yeah,
going to
no,
tell us exactly what you
and
think.
I just want to say thanks. You are the epitome of the American dream. I mean, it takes a lot of courage, a lot of hard work. I mean, it's just like, you just have a lot of admirable qualities, and I appreciate that. And,
you.
I thank you for just being who you are, man. So you just come back. I like I'm saying, we want you to come back. Everybody,
Whenever you want to, too.
yeah,
you
we-
Thanks
I
know.
mean,
for having me.
yeah, anytime you want to come on, I'm sure you
We've
can
got
join in on the
extra seat right
conversation.
here. You can bring someone. You can bring someone else.
Yeah.
And then we've got like plug ups for several mics, so
Yeah,
we
yeah,
can
man.
do all kinds of stuff.
That's right. We
Um,
can have Kira on here. That's what I'm saying.
That
and-
was remarkable, Kira.
Enjoying that.
So
Yeah.
so where she stays at whenever she's with my mom is at the flower shop
yeah,
that my mom runs, and at the flower shop they have their own. She has her own chair,
yeah,
and she'll sit there and stare at you if you sit in her chair, and
Right.
it's an office chair.
right.
She'll sit there and stare at you, and she's like,
Yeah. Well,
"Let me get my
everybody,
chair."
everybody want to remind you of Tennessee stands. If you're a patriot, if you love America,
The website is Tri-Cities
Okay.
dot Tennessee spelled out
Mhm.
stands.org.
Awesome.
Also on Facebook, there's two different Facebook affiliations. There's this Tri-Cities branch, and then there's also
Right. right.
the major one.
Everybody get to know your next Congressman, Matt Macrum. So
Hopefully, Congressman, we'll see. July 6th, at Calvary Chapel. That's over in the Tree
off
Street.
of Locust Street.
Yeah, so there's gonna be a meeting there. Want everyone to show up. People, it doesn't have. You have to be a member of the church. You have to be a member of the organization. You
Right.
just have to care about
Care
your
about this country.
Yeah.
Care about each other.
local organization,
Right.
conservatism, and conservatism in terms of we're not. I hate when people are like, "Well, it's a tradition." No, conservatism as far as the Constitution and conserving the Constitution. That's
Right.
all I. That's all I care about. I don't. Any other decisions you make inside of that box, that's fun. You do what you want, but that's conservatism. Okay, conserving the Constitution.
Right.
Right.
So, everybody, as I always say, love your neighbor, talk to your neighbor. If people don't agree with you, you don't have to treat them badly.
You just smack them in the face like they did to Macron.
That's right.
But say
Yeah.
so. Just another quick thing. Everyone like and subscribe
Right,
to our YouTube.
We are on
Um,
Spotify
on
also.
Spotify, and also check out my campaign website. You'll find links to everything here. Also, mattforcongress.vote. I'm on LinkedIn. We're like he said. We're on Spotify.
Right.
We're on YouTube.
Right.
Spread the
Any
word.
TikToks
Right.
yet?
No TikToks. Maybe we should do TikTok. I don't know.
No way, bro.
I'm not doing
No
it.
way, man. No, I would say.
It's still a Chinese company. I thought Trump said, Oracle had to buy them out or something
I'm
like
not
that.
sure, bro.
It's not
I'm
happening.
not
huh?
sure, man. But everybody, we will see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.